You know what ends up happening? That's always a little bit surprising is that you talk to somebody about basketball stuff that they love, and inevitably they mention at some point a heartbreak is included in the package. You know what I mean? It's like miserable to live through, but fun to talk about after because it's like, even the like the phrase I always use is like the worst wounds heal into like the coolest battle scars, right? So I hated, for example, the Derek Fisher point four shot is the most devastating basketball memory of my life. It will remain that forever, no matter what. Even higher than the Ray Allen one. Because I'm a Spurs guy, it'll always be number one. But anytime I'm talking about why I love basketball, that moment comes up because that's part of the experience. That's part, like, this has to happen to you at some point, and you're gonna have a version of that where you just had your fucking heart broken by a thing that happened in a game. Every basketball fan has that thing.
He is the author of the New York Times best-selling book, Expensive Basketball, which is available now at your local bookstore. We have the pleasure in welcoming Shea Serrano onto Hoopsology. Welcome, Shea.
What up, my friend?
Thanks for coming on to the show. Truly appreciate it. We love just having authors who discover the world of basketball, so it's a pleasure to have you on. So this first basic question, what was the inspiration for this book is very unique, different than any other basketball books currently out there. What was just the creation process and the inspiration behind the book?
Thank you for saying that, first of all. Second of all, that was sort of the inspiration for the book itself. Was I wanted to try to make a basketball book that wasn't currently out there. So I knew I wanted to write a book about basketball. I was trying to figure out what to do. I just reviewed all the basketball books that I have, went to the bookstore, looked at all the basketball books that were there, tried to like figure out a way to write about basketball in an interesting or compelling or new sort of way. That's sort of how it went. One of the things that I did as part of the research was I would talk to people that I knew who loved basketball, and I would ask them to tell me what their favorite basketball memory was. It doesn't even have to be like your number one memory, but what's a basketball thing you remember happening that you have like a fond feeling for? And the same thing would happen every single time that this person would tell me this story. As an example to prove this theory, I'm going to do it with you right now. Justin, will you tell me a basketball memory that you have in your head, something that it just makes you happy when you think about it?
Turning the table. This is usually what I do with my co-host every episode. So we had it on before, so that's why I skipped it this time. But this is always a tough question. My co-host did this to me, and I had a tough time coming up with this. But I think my favorite basketball memory, the first one that comes to mind, is just the MJ flu game. I was originally from Albuquerque, New Mexico. No NBA teams. The Bulls were dominant in the 90s. I gravitated towards him at that iconic shot of just him crossing up Byron Russell, and him just hitting that shot to win basically the NBA Finals, I think in 1998. It's just imprinted in my brain. It will never. So that's probably my favorite.
Okay, so that memory there, that's a great one. Jordan's quote unquote flu game,
Yeah.
where it probably wasn't the flu, but we're gonna call it the flu anyway. Who knows what it really was?
Right.
Whatever. But to hear you talk about it now, a thing that didn't happen is you didn't tell me like what he shot from the field or what his player efficiency rating was, right? Because a number is never the first thing you think of when you think about a thing that you love. Never. Not ever. You picture in your head that flu game. Probably the most iconic shot is Scottie holding Michael Jordan up as they're walking to the bench, or Mike on the bench just looking dead with a towel over his head, or what, you know what I mean? Seeing him hold that follow through on that final shot. You think about those moments first. You think about the feeling that you had watching this sort of basketball superhero doing a thing that only he seemed to ever be able to do. Nobody cares what his shooting percentage was that night. You care about this other part of it, this other thing. And so when I was making the basketball book, and every person that I talked to that did the same exact thing, they would tell me about, Steph Curry's Olympic moment, or Reggie Miller's eight points rapid fire moment, or whatever, Jalen Brunson doing something, or whatever it was. There was never like, oh, it was the night that Steph Curry was 9 for 17 from three. And it's never that. It's this other thing that you're talking about. And so when I made the book, I said, well, I was figuring out what the book was going to be. I said, all right, I'm going to do that then. I'm going to make a book that brings the conversation there. There are numbers in it, stats in it. The book is not a refutation of stats. It is just proposing that any time you use a number in a conversation, it should be in service of something else. In this particular case, it should be in service of this feeling that you had in your chest while you were watching basketball, because that's the thing that made you love it. So that's what I want to talk about. That's what I'm the most interested in.
You feel like the feelings have changed since like the 90s and 80s compared to now, where there's the age of social media? Just because when I was growing up watching the game, a lot of athletes, and not just basketball, but all sports, you didn't know too much about their personal lives. It wasn't so much on display. You have to do a lot of research to find something out. When you're, to me, watching an NBA game or any other sport, you're watching that athlete perform that feat. And then now, basically, with, I think, I don't know, maybe if you can turn, but a lot of, younger people that might be into the NBA, they're not just watching Victor Wembanyama play basketball. They're also engaging with him on social media, things outside of the court. So how does that, I guess, dichotomy, that difference there in terms of like growing up in the 80s, 90s, and maybe early 2000s compared to the age of social media? Do you think those feelings have changed in terms of how the younger people connect to the game of basketball now compared to years past?
I think that the process of the connection is different, but the feeling is the same. Like you talk to a young person, like 19-year-old, 18-year-old, whatever, about their favorite basketball player. Their story will include, Kevin Durant liked a tweet that I sent, and that like meant a lot to, like, it'll include or incorporate things that you and I don't have with our favorite basketball players, but ultimately they're feeling that same tug, that same gravity that we felt with ours when we were growing up. It's just presenting itself in a different way, I think.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Which leads me to my next question in terms of the actual play on the court. I just think a lot of the game has evolved very much internationally, in terms of the number of MVPs that come from different countries to even the college game. And I just want to get your kind of feeling in terms of, I don't know, I think this year's an exception because of the television contracts, a lot more optimism around the game. But I think in years past, usually the discussion's a lot more negative. And I think that's just such a shame in terms of not celebrating the game of basketball. So kind of, I guess my question is, in terms of this year, what's your kind of overall feelings in terms of kind of the new television landscape? Seems like there's going to be a return of celebrating the game of basketball and not so much focusing on like the criticisms and the negativity of players, and instead focusing on what they do well on the court. It doesn't mean the athletes can't be criticized, but this celebrating their greatness while they're currently playing.
Yeah, I think that feels pretty in tune with how I have, I guess, absorbed the game over the past couple of years. It did seem like there was a period where it was like not necessarily cool to be negative, but like I could make a name for myself if I come on this show and like say some bad things about a player or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, recently I think it started for me last year, this sort of shift in the way that the game was talked about and the way that the game was presented on TV. It seemed like enough people were making enough noise about, hey, it would be cool if you guys were like talking about the game slightly differently. Like that would mean a lot to us if you did that, right? And so it felt like it started last season, and then this season that was like a point of emphasis going in. So you watch something like the Amazon Prime show, right?
Yeah.
I think that is such a wonderful addition to like your weekly basketball viewing experience, because you've got these 5 people up there. You know, you got Taylor, Dirk, Steph, Udonis, and who's the 5th one I'm missing?
I think Dirk, Steve Nash, Udonis, Blake Griffin.
Oh, Blake, of course, Blake Griffin, the funny one, right? But you've got Taylor, and then you've got these 4 other people, and it's like they go out there. You watch the game, they go out there, and they're just like 5 smart, charming people talking about a thing that they care about, and they're not like trying to be a different. There were so many like years where a basketball program would pop up and it'd be like, oh, you guys are trying to be inside the NBA, which you can't be. You can't be inside the NBA. That show is all chemistry, because they've been together for a quarter of a century. You can't replicate that, no matter how hard you try, right? The Amazon Prime team, they show up and they do a whole different thing, and it was like, this is exactly what I want to see during like halftime of a game or before a game starts. You've got that going on Peacock. You've got the thing which I really, really love. You've got this thing of like they're now giving you a 45-second pre-cap of the teams who are about to play and like why this is a meaningful matchup. I'm sitting there listening to Bob Costas tell me like he's like I care about the fucking Los Angeles Clippers all of a sudden in this game that they're gonna play because of these 10 sentences he just said. But yeah, it feels like it's being offered up to us in a different way, and it's really exciting, and it just makes for such a fun viewing experience.
Yeah, I totally agree. I appreciate this incorporating new broadcast elements. Do your research for the book. Was there anything just besides what you mentioned earlier in terms of we asked people about their favorite or first basketball memories? They didn't really incorporate stats. Was there anything else that was like a through line that you didn't expect them to answer in terms of mentioning those memories that, that was a shock to you? Just in terms of them reflecting on the game.
You know what ends up happening? That's always a little bit surprising is that you talk to somebody about basketball stuff that they love, and inevitably they mention at some point a heartbreak is included in the package. You know what I mean? It's like miserable to live through, but fun to talk about after, because it's like, even the phrase I always use is like the worst wounds heal into like the coolest battle scars, right? So I hated, for example, the Derek Fisher .4 shot is the most devastating basketball memory of my life. It will remain that forever, no matter what. Even higher than the Ray Allen one. Because I'm a Spurs guy, it'll always be number one. But anytime I'm talking about why I love basketball, that moment comes up because that's part of the experience. That's part, like, this has to happen to you at some point, and you're gonna have a version of that where you just had your fucking heart broken by a thing that happened in a game. Every basketball fan has that thing, and so I guess I wasn't expecting for other people to tell me theirs. I knew I felt that way. Like, I had written about it before. I guess I wasn't expecting other people to feel the same way. So to like, if I'm talking to like Chris Vernon, for example, a Memphis Grizzlies guy, about basketball, he will inevitably bring up like a time that they had their heart broken, or like a bad, you know what I mean? Like it always happens that way, and that was surprising to me, but also like very cool, which is why it's like part of the book as well, the bad stuff that happens.
It's funny you bring that up because I follow the World Series. I'm not a baseball fan, but I'm at a podcast that's based in Toronto, and they said just that. Like, they're a huge Blue Jays fan. They jumped on the bandwagon. Even though they didn't win, just like that whole ride was super memorable, and they'll always have that memory, even though Game 7 was horrible for them, and totally empathize with their pain. But I think through heartbreak also comes like the victory too, the satisfaction of victory, where it just tastes sweeter when your team kind of goes through a lot of pain. I think with the Bulls, like myself, I was young, and so Chicago was just dominant. I grew up and they were just a dominant team. And now they have either stunk or been painfully mediocre ever since Jordan has retired. So it's going to make it sweeter, whenever that is. It could be 90 years old. I don't know. It could be dead and gone. Who knows? But when the Bulls win a title, I don't know. But I feel you in terms of I think that the pain kind of makes it more sweeter compared to when you're just a fan and the team's just winning all the time. You don't really appreciate how the journey is to, get to that final destination of winning a title. I totally.
Yeah. And the winning a title thing, of course, absolves so much of the stuff, but I don't think you even need to do that. Like, there were people who were alive for the entirety of their lives, and like the Red Sox, right? There was somebody who was born after they won their last one and died before they won their next one, and all they knew was losing, and that was just like a part of the experience, and it was like miserable, but also kind of funny, devastating. You love the Red Sox, but also like, this is sort of who we are right now. I don't think you need to win to change that other stuff, but it does help. It does make it a little bit easier. If you've got, I see your frame thing behind you, if you've got 6 championship trophies that you can sort of rest your weary head upon, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel you. What was the easiest and most difficult chapters in writing this book in your opinion?
The most difficult chapters, that's easy to answer because it was two of them. It was the Tim Duncan chapter because that's my favorite basketball player of all time, and I had never written a Tim Duncan chapter in a basketball book, and I was nervous that I wasn't gonna do like a good enough job with it. I wanted to like honor all of the feelings I had for Tim Duncan and toward Tim Duncan, and so that one was a hard one. I wrote and rewrote and wrote and rewrote that one probably 15 times before it ended up being like, okay, this is what I want my like. If I never write another thing about Tim Duncan, this is the thing I want people to read, right? So that was hard for like a personal reason. Pragmatically, the Jordan chapter was the hardest one to write because you're talking about the most discussed basketball player of all time, right? Like as I sit here to do this interview, I have the Sam Smith the Jordan rules book, right? And I have the Michael Leahy, When Nothing Else Matters, Michael Jordan's Last Comeback. Like I have every Michael Jordan book out there. Every part of his career is covered ad nauseum. Every single part of it. But I can't write a book about like the most important, most significant basketball things and not have him in there. So I had to figure out a way to write about him in a way that hadn't been done yet. And so that took a long time because every time you think you like found an angle in, you're like, oh fuck, there's a whole book about this. I got to find another way to do it. Eventually I figured out a way to do it that I thought was like really fun and super nerdy. But it took a long time. That was the like, fuck, this is harder than I thought it was going to be, for that reason. But those are the two.
You bring up Michael Jordan, and I'm just wondering because I always say I'm like a full member of the Church of Jordan. I just never hear me say a bad thing about him. But I'm just wondering about the game itself compared to other sports. I just feel like his shadow still looms large in terms of other players creating their own legacy. I'm just wondering, are we at a point to where when Jokic retires, when Wembanyama retires, when, I think maybe, I don't think it'll happen for LeBron, but maybe Steph Curry, where these players will be judged on their individual merits and their achievements and not compared to MJ. Because I just feel like compared to other sports, you don't really see that as much compared to with basketball. Just there's always this sense of just comparing them to Michael. And I just feel like that's a disservice in terms of honoring the legacies of both athletes. Even though, I love Jordan and all, I love Jokic too. I live in Denver. I've seen the guy play. He's incredible. I don't want him to be compared to Jordan. When he retires, I just want his greatness to be appreciated. I just feel like the national media and even still conversations, either on social media or in the barbershop or whatever, it always comes down to just that Jordan conversation. It's just, I don't know, I feel kind of weird about it, even though I'm just, I'll say Jordan's the greatest player who ever lived, but at the same time, I'm not going to rub it in the face of every time somebody retires, you're just saying Jordan's better.
Yeah, I guess that's a byproduct of Jordan being viewed as the greatest of all time. That's like a default thing that you do where you go, okay, but there's, Jordan still exists. Like, I don't know why people respond that way if you say, this happened to me just the other day. Literally yesterday, I'm rewatching Parks and Rec, right? The TV show Parks and Rec. Really, I love Parks and Rec. I think it's a perfect TV show. And so I tweeted, Parks and Rec is a perfect TV show. Send it off. And for whatever reason, whatever is inside of like a person that compels them to do this, I started getting back, yeah, but it's not blank. Yeah, but blank is better. A whole different other TV shows you're talking about. I'm talking about this one thing, and you're bringing up other things just for, I don't know, tribalism. I don't know what the reason is, but that's, yeah. So that happens with basketball when somebody eventually retires, or a new player comes up, like, that gets brought up, but I think it doesn't get brought up for everybody. Like you're saying, it's not going to happen with Steph, and it's not going to happen with the Joker, and it's not going to happen with most people, because most people are not in the conversation for the greatest of all time. It will always happen with LeBron because he's eye to eye with Jordan.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's why that happens. It's sort of inevitable anytime those comparisons are made. But if you're a player who's not regarded as like in the conversation of the greatest of all time, Steph is the greatest shooter of all time. He's not in the conversation for the greatest basketball player of all time, right? Regardless of all of the stuff he's accomplished, he doesn't get to be a part of that conversation. He doesn't get to sit at that particular table, and that's why it's not going to be brought up as much with him. So it's like, in a sense, it's a compliment, but also, yeah, it does get a little bit sticky of like, why do we need to mention it all the time? It doesn't bother me personally. I think
Yeah.
I like to argue about that sort of stuff. I like to bring up that sort of stuff. I have been flip-flopping back and forth for like the past 5 years about who's better between Jordan and LeBron. It depends on what I've just watched. Did I just watch LeBron play? Well, then it's LeBron. Did I just rewatch Michael Jordan come play with me on remember the old tape? Like, did I just watch it? Well, then it's Michael Jordan. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's true. I feel like LeBron takes a lot of heat now, and I don't think his longevity is really appreciated for what he can do, especially at his age and what he's able to produce. I think it's incredible. And
Yeah.
it is, it's such a different age because I think with Jordan, I think not just younger people, but just journalists really appreciate his greatness. And I don't think LeBron gets that same appreciation.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not. But there is a shift that's happening because so many of the like basketball writers and basketball talking heads came up under the Jordan reign. And so you're always going to be like, well, that guy. I feel the same way when people talk about Shaq and they're like, Shaq couldn't play in the NBA today. I'm like, are you fucking out of your mind? Are you out of your mind? You think Shaq is getting played off the court? Shaq would average 50 and 30 in the NBA today. What are you talking? Like, you know what I mean? So I think that of course happens for so long with Jordan. But there's like this new generation of younger writers who came up under the LeBron reign. And so those guys are like, no, actually, it's my guy's better than your guy. And here's why. He's got more points. He's got more rebounds. He's got more assists. He's got more wins. They're able to do that. And then the Jordan guys are always like, well, my guy's got more championships. So what are we arguing about? Like, it's never going to change. You're never going to change anybody's mind. But that shift is definitely happening of like who the like majority view as the greatest to ever do it.
Yeah, boy. I want to focus on your chapters on the W. And what are your feelings in terms of just what's happening with women's basketball on Rival? There's this new league, Project B, that I guess it's going to happen. There's the WNBA CBA negotiation. This seems like the league is finally getting the recognition that it deserves. And I'm glad you shed a spotlight on it in your book. What's kind of your overall feelings in terms of kind of heading into this contentious period with just what's going to happen with the labor negotiations? And if that's resolved, what's going to happen, in the seasons beyond in terms of the game you think in the W?
I'm very excited about it. I didn't start watching the WNBA until 2018 was the first season that I watched it, right? That was when I was like, all right, I want to like know the players. I want to know the storylines also. So I need to watch this the same way that I watched the NBA. When the NBA season's on, like the setup now, Monday and Tuesday, you're watching the Peacock games. Wednesday or Thursday is the prime games, and Friday, you have like a schedule in place. And I wanted to do that with the WNBA. And when I first started, again, this is 2018, so I'm 20 years late or whatever. But when I first started, it was hard to watch a W game on your TV. You had to have the league pass, and then you had to hook your computer up to the TV if you wanted to watch it on the TV. That's how you watch it. It was very, very hard to get like a national game. But now the W season rolls around, and it's like every night there's a national game that you can watch on wherever. And I think because of more opportunities and the I guess the amount of time that is being covered, everybody's just going, oh, this kind of fucking rules. Like, this is really fun. This is more basketball is always good. So it's been very exciting to watch it sort of take off in the way that it has these last 2 years, especially when it's like very clearly we have passed the sort of tipping point. And now we're headed toward this. It feels like we're always headed towards something bigger with the league, which has been really fun to watch. It's really exciting to go. But yeah, so when I'm working on the book, all I was doing with the book was like making a list of the basketball players I find to be the most interesting to talk about and to write about and to think about. And as I was going through the list, Asia's on there. That's my favorite player in the league. I started watching the year that she was drafted, so I've seen all of her stuff. Like that's the one player who I like have that relationship with, where I'm like, oh, I know from the same as how I felt about, Tim Duncan or whatever. Like I watched him come into the league and followed his whole career. I'm doing that with Asia, but also, Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi are just two players who, even if you've never watched basketball before, a W game before, and there's 10 players out on the court, your eye gets pulled toward those players to a Sue Bird. You don't know anything about anything, but for some reason you're like, why do I keep looking at this player here with a Diana Taurasi, with a Jonquel Jones, with a Fee, like a newer player with Fee, with Brianna Stewart. Like your eye drifts toward somebody who's just doing something in a cool way. And so I was putting my list together of who I wanted to write about, and those names were on there. So they were, they made great additions to the book.
Any players that didn't make the cut that you really wanted to put in there, but they just missed that through it all?
A ton. So what happens is, with a book, you have a certain amount of space. You have 352 pages, right? Minus the introduction, minus the index, minus the acknowledgments, all of that stuff. Ultimately, it boils down to about 30 chapters is what I have. Within those 30 chapters, I'm trying to draw a full view, to paint a full view of not only the basketball, but like the spectrum of emotions that you can feel while watching it. That's what I'm trying to do with the book. And so you're plugging stuff in. There are like non-negotiables in there. For me, the two players who have like defined my adulthood of basketball fandom, Tim Duncan and Kobe Bryant. Those are like the two guys. So I said, well, these guys are going to be in there for sure. I'm going to start the book with one. I'm going to end the book with the other. Now I'm filling in spaces in between. And you're like, okay, who else has to be in here? We talked about Mike. Mike has to be in here. Magic has to be in here. I want players in here who winning a championship is not a prerequisite, right? I need to feel something. So I felt something watching Tracy McGrady and watching Vince Carter and Jason Williams. So like these guys are into it. Whatever. I'm trying to paint this like whole view of the spectrum of emotions you can get while watching basketball. And as you're doing that, inevitably, you start to double up on some things without realizing it. So, for example, there's a chapter in the book about Tim Duncan. There's a chapter in the book about Dirk Nowitzki. And there was originally a chapter in the book about Kevin Garnett. And as I was like looking at the layout of the thing, I said, well, the stuff I'm saying in the Kevin Garnett chapter is sort of already what I'm saying with the Dirk Nowitzki chapter. And I already have two power forwards from that era. So KG loses his spot. He's at, because it's already covered. The thing I wanted to talk about is already covered. Same thing with there's a chapter in there about the 1993 Charlotte Hornets, right? This like beautiful basketball team that for whatever reason we all just decided we were going to be in love with. I don't know anything about Charlotte. I just know I love, for some reason, Larry Johnson and Alonzo Mourning and Muggsy Bogues and Dale Curry and J.R. Reed and whatever, right? But there's just like they're this special basketball team and like the history of basketball. I had written a chapter about the 2002 Sacramento Kings, 10 years later, but they sort of did a similar thing where they were just playing basketball in this way that everybody unanimously was like, this is beautiful basketball. This is what it should look like. So we're going to love this team, right? And when I was putting the book together, I'm realizing all of the stuff I'm saying in this 2002 Sacramento Kings chapter, sort of the same stuff I'm saying in the 1993 Charlotte Hornets chapter. I don't need both of them, so you're out of here. There were, I think, 4 total chapters that I wrote that ended up not going in there, but those 2 are the easiest example to throw in here.
Because that is that's like a Herculean task. I guess my last question to you is for fans now that are watching the game. What are things that they should appreciate that goes unnoticed that you wish basketball fans should focus on, that maybe they get caught up on like what's going on and kind of the mainstream talking points or just being argumentative? That's fun, but also, missing kind of nuances of the game that you notice that you wish should be more appreciated.
I don't think that there's one specific thing, one exact thing that I can point to here, but thing that I will say is when you and I were growing up watching basketball was a one-screen experience, right? It's right here, and that's it. There's not another, we didn't have cell phones, so there's not like another TV playing something else where you're sort of going back and forth between. There was one game on your screen and you were watching that. And because that's how we watched basketball, we just sort of picked up on like small little things that you're not going to notice if you're watching basketball doing this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you talk to a kid who grew up in the 80s or 90s, we all sort of knew, this was never discussed. This was never like a talking point on TV. But we all sort of knew that for some reason, 4 minutes into the first quarter of a Knicks game, Patrick Ewing was going to be fucking covered in sweat. We knew that. We all knew that. You don't have to be a Knicks fan. You don't have to watch 82 games. You just see him on TV once or twice. But because you're watching it, you're like, what's going on here? What has happened? Why is this guy wet? Why is he soaking wet before the first TV timeout? I don't understand. Right? Because you're watching that thing. And so I always try to encourage like younger viewers to watch basketball that sort of way. It's really fun to watch basketball with Twitter open on your phone or whatever, but it's a different experience when it's not there. You're just like, did Steph get a haircut? He got a haircut. Like you start noticing stuff like that, or you start noticing like, oh, when Kyrie Irving is dribbling with his left hand, he has like this tiny little hitch that he does that like it makes it impossible to guard him for whatever. Like you start noticing little things like that. So I always try to encourage people, young people especially, because I watch it with my own sons, of like, hey, just be here right now and watch this thing. It just makes it's a richer experience. It's a fuller experience. It makes you care about the players in a different way. When you're like, he likes to. We mentioned Blake Griffin in the when we were talking about the Amazon Prime thing. Like we grew up watching Blake Griffin dunk, and Blake Griffin, Michael Jordan has the tongue out thing. Go watch old clips of Blake Griffin when he's dunking, and for whatever reason, he covers his top and bottom teeth. He does this move. I don't know why he does it, but I know that he does it because I watched Blake Griffin play basketball for however many years it was. But watch basketball as a one-screen experience, and it makes the game so much more fun and so much more enjoyable.
Yeah,
that's going to be my old man take.
No, that's great advice. I struggle with that because that's my brain goes digital. I kind of want to know what's going on too. I feel you because, like, first example is how Allen Iverson with the sleeve, right? That became something that was made from Under Armour to help him turn into a fashion accessory. You see that sleeve worn today. And that's just, it was, if he gave this his own fashion, his own identity. Just people idolizing him to this day, this return of how he dressed. And I just don't feel like that's appreciated with the players now. So you're right. I agree with you. Even though that's something I've truly tried to impart and practice.
Put the phone away, Justin. Put the phone away.
Yeah, put it in the pocket. Turn it off for sure. Shea, thank you very much for joining me. Truly appreciate this. Was an honor. I appreciate the time. Congratulations on the book. Can you let our audience know where they can find the book, where they can find you on social media, if any upcoming projects or anything else you want our audience to be aware of as well?
All that I want them to be aware of is that basketball is the best sport and that I love it, and that they should go buy the book, Expensive Basketball. It's in stores everywhere that sells books, from Barnes & Noble to Walmart. It's buy it from an indie if you can. Indie bookstores are the best. They also give you bonus stuff because it's real humans selling you the things. But yeah, any bookstore that you can, go buy it. If you, for some reason, don't feel like leaving your house, just Google Shea Serrano and then buy whatever the first thing is that pops up. That'll be the book.
Awesome, Shea. Congratulations. Thank you very much for the time. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Justin.